This is a single point resaw fence. And I want to show you how to make one, how to use it, and why it might be one of the most underrated tools in the shop. So, here's the deal. I'm currently working on a project, and this project involves a lot of veneers. A lot of shop sawn veneers, to be specific. I've got a whole selection of them right here that I've cut out. They're all in the range of a 1/16 thick. I've got some more over here. I've got stacks and stacks of these. I think all in all, I cut out a few dozen, maybe 36. I don't know, that's just a random guess, but somewhere in that range of a bunch of different veneers to create this marquetry pattern. And as I was doing so, I was articulating over on my stories on Instagram about the technique I was using to resaw. And it seemed from the responses to that story that a lot of folks were unaware of what a single point resaw fence is and how it can be utilized in the small shop. This is a single point resaw fence. It's a very, very rudimentary bit of equipment that you can make in your shop in, 20 minutes. So let's talk about it. So before we dive into how to use a resaw fence, we have to first answer the question, why do we resaw at all? What's the point of resawing? What's our goal? And our goal is to create veneers. And all a veneer is, very simply, is a tiny slice of wood. That's literally all it is. It is taking a full board and then slicing one piece off and getting a piece that is generally less than 1/8 of an inch thick, so that you can then glue this to a stable substrate such as MDF or plywood, and this piece no longer expands and contracts with the seasons. That's all we're trying to accomplish. And in small wood shops where we're making one-off objects, sometimes we create veneers on our own rather than purchase commercially available ones, and so we resaw. But this video is not about the why, it's about the how. It's about the single point resaw fence. So let's talk about why I'm using this method in particular. Now, I do want to acknowledge briefly that you can absolutely resaw on a table saw, but there are two distinct disadvantages to doing so. The first is this is a 10-inch blade, which is very typical in a standard table saw, and the maximum height that you can cut is somewhere in the range of 3 1/8. And so at most, the widest that you can resaw is about 6 inches, maybe up to 6 1/4, which means any board wider than that just can't be resawn on here. There are other workarounds that you can do, but it's limited in that regard. But of course, the other distinct disadvantage, and maybe the more severe one, is the thickness of the blade. The table saw blade is typically 1/8 of an inch. You can get a thin kerf that's around 3/32, but that's still a very beefy blade, meaning that every time you cut a veneer, you're losing 1/8 of an inch of that board. Versus the bandsaw, which is, I don't know what the kerf is, but it's substantially less than the table saw blade. So thinner blade equals more veneers out of every board, equals more yieldage out of every board that you buy. So you say, okay, great, that's wonderful. Eric, why don't I just resaw everything at the bandsaw? Because you're removing less material, you clearly have more height advantage. You can resaw up to 12 to 13 inches on a pretty standard bandsaw these days, so why not just work at this machine instead? It's an excellent question. Again, you guys ask all the right questions all the time. I'm so proud of you. Here's the deal with the bandsaw. It has something called drift. Now, allow me to be hyperbolic for just a second and say that drift may be the absolute bane of my existence. It's just a dumb thing that a machine does that you're like, haven't we invented a better way to make this machine yet? But of course we haven't, because this machine was invented sometime in the early 1800s, and it's basically not changed. So here's what happens. Your bandsaw blade wants to twist through a cut. It's just the way this blade works. It's thin, it's flexy, and as you push your board through this cut, it's sitting on a crowned wheel up here. That wheel has a crown to it, and where it sits on that wheel depends on which direction it wants to flex. And so, in order to account for that drift, you set your fence to the drift. Because if your fence is set at 90 degrees to your table, and your blade is not set to absolute zero drift, which no practical woodworker ever has their blade set that way. That's usually like the bandsaw guy who does that. But If your fence is not set to the drift and it's set 90 degrees to the table, then you're going to get an inaccurate cut. Either the blade is going to pull the piece off of the fence as you cut, or it's going to push against the fence that way, and your blade is actually going to come under some real tension that runs the risk of damaging the blade or just messing up the cut. And so we have to account for that somehow. And you can do this in one of two ways. Either you can build a shop-made fence or get a commercially made fence that has drift set available in it, right? That fence can swing in one direction or the other to account for the drift, but it generally only swings so far. And if you have a bandsaw that likes to have a heavy drift for some reason, then you might not be able to get all of that swing in there to really set your drift proper. And that is an issue because then you simply can't resaw on your bandsaw. And that is where the single point resaw fence really comes in handy. Now look, I'm lazy. I admit it. I make no qualms about it. I have no apologies to give. I will always take the path of least resistance, and I will only do what is necessary to get the job done well. So I have yet to make an extensive, elaborate resaw fence for this bandsaw because I just don't see the need to do it. Because the single point resaw fence is incredibly effective and it takes maybe 15 minutes to build. So in order to show you how that jig works and how accurate it can be, let's make one. Now look, I'm not gonna insult your intelligence and say you can't figure out how this thing is made. And so I'm not gonna do an elaborate music launched build montage to show you how this thing is made. I'm just kidding, you know I love a build montage, let's do it. So, there's really only one, well, I suppose two important dimensions when it comes to setting up this fence. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set it against my fence, and I'm going to close the distance between this piece and the fence to whatever the thickness of material I want. So typically, if I'm cutting, say, 1/16 veneers, I may set this distance at 1/8, or maybe a heavy eighth, depending on how confident I am with my skills to follow a line. So I'm just gonna call this, we'll call it 1/8. We'll call it 1/8. I'm gonna say 332, which I feel good about. I feel good at 332. So we're gonna call it 332. The other important thing, and this is absolutely imperative to the success of using this piece, is the apex of the curve, the most rounded point out here, wants to be aligned with the very front of these teeth. That's where it wants to be because that's the pivot point. And so once I have that lined up, listen, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times on this channel, we're not building the Eiffel Tower. I just eyeball for the apex, and then I kind of run my finger on here, and if it feels like it's the apex, it's the apex. And then I'm gonna throw a clamp right here. So let's do that. Now, here is the one downside to the single point fence is I'm gonna mark a line on my board so that I can see a pencil line to follow, and I'm gonna have to do that every time I cut a veneer so that I know I'm cutting a line parallel to that edge. You can eyeball it if you're comfortable with that, but it's very easy. All I'm gonna do is take my square, I'm gonna set it to a 1/16 or so because I'm aiming for a heavy 1/16. I'm gonna do that. And then I'm just gonna do the old finger gauge, and that's gonna be good enough. Now, I can follow my line on my bandsaw to make sure that I'm following the drift properly. So let's talk about how to actually eyeball for that drift. So going way back to the beginning of our conversation on this, every bandsaw blade, when you push it through, unless it is absolutely perfectly set, is not going to travel 90 degrees to the table or parallel to your miter slot. It's either going to move in that direction in order to stay parallel to your line, or it's gonna move in that direction. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start my cut and I'm gonna move in just a little bit, and I'm eyeballing to see how the blade is interacting with my line. If it's staying parallel with my line, I'm good. I'm gonna keep pushing in that direction. If it's moving toward my line, I'm going to try to correct and move that blade out away from my line. If it's moving away from my line, I'm going to try to move the blade toward my line. Now, once I make a cut, I should have a good idea of what angle my set actually is, or what angle my drift is at, and then I can kind of just eyeball for that angle for all the subsequent cuts. So let's go ahead and cut one to see where that drift is set, and then we'll flip it around and we'll cut the other and see how accurate we can be with it. That's it, guys. That's the whole thing. That's just literally taking a piece of wood and slicing it up into a bunch of different veneers that you can take and orient in different ways, either for veneering an entire surface, just book matching or slip matching, or doing marquetry pieces as well. The first piece I cut, you can see a little bit inconsistent. I've got some high spots here, a couple of low spots here while I was finding that angle. But the second veneer I cut, overall, really very consistent. I've got a little bit of a hump right in here, just a touch of one, probably a variation of a 64th or so. Rarely would I take this right off the bandsaw and glue this to a substrate, because that undulation, that unevenness in the surface is gonna transfer to the top. So what I would do is I would stick this on a sled and run it through a drum sander in an ideal situation, or if you don't have one, like I don't, you can double stick it to a sled and run it through a planer, very, very carefully, taking very, very shallow passes. That's exactly what I did on these veneers, and you can see both faces are perfectly clean. Now, I did have a little bit left over, so I made 2 more veneers, and you can see how thin you can get even off of a single point fence without like a proper resaw fence. These veneers are maybe a 64th. If I'm honest, they're too thin for my comfort. I would never then take these to a planer and plane these down. Maybe I would put them through a thickness sander. That's not that far off a commercial veneer, if we're honest. So friends, that's that. Another one in the books, the single point resaw fence. Look, maybe it's not the most useful thing in the world for you. Maybe you already have a resaw fence, or maybe you're never gonna resaw in your life, and that's totally fine. But I think understanding what the bandsaw is doing and why is still a really important skill for any number of things, including just like cutting accurate joinery. And that may be a thing that comes in handy for, say, cutting the cheeks of tenons. Just one example that it may be useful and applicable to you even if you're not cutting veneers. There's a lot of cool things to make, a la what's underneath here, which you will see soon, that I'm excited to share with you, and I hope you get a chance to go enjoy that process. But as always, friends, go get in the shop, go make a thing, and try to enjoy it if you can. Till next week.